to share. Hospitality here is not performance. It is the architecture of our identity. We call it
Albanity,
where every guest is a mirror of ourselves. But what if we imagined hospitality not only as tradition, but as a blueprint of a new space? Not just rooms and roofs, places that hold memory, invite conversation, and anticipate a better future. Together voices from afar and as many from here. Foreign minds, local hands, new perspectives and familiar streets. In the heart of Tirana, we gather to understand, design and transform. Welcome to the Festival of Architecture. Bring some salt. Here, bread and heart are how we build. Albanity holds it all together.
Me. Good morning, everyone. A warm welcome to the first edition of the Bread and Heart Festival right here in the heart of Tirana. Welcome, Prime Minister. Welcome to all of you at this truly exciting event. I think it promises to be a historical moment. The highest density of award-winning architects in the world. I think we're rivaling Venice at the moment. Fantastic to see so many faces, known faces, famous faces, but also young faces, a younger generation of Albanian architects and citizens joining us here today. Until just a few hours ago, this was an anthill with hundreds of people working frantically to get this done, and I think they pulled it off. Everything seems to work. So great thanks to Adelina and Ada and their fantastic team for making this happen. Yeah, so exciting day. My name is Michiel van Iersel and I'm a part of Loom, a practice for cultural transformation, and we've been trusted with this daunting task to kind of guide you through the day and to keep track of time with a program of over 40 speakers and many more guests who for sure would like to contribute. I'm here with René Boer, Katia Truijen, Mark Minkjan, Amoina Hoja, who will be walking around today with the camera, talking to some of you, and also doing interviews. Very important to document this historical event. And then there's Anastasia here with us who will be keeping notes, again, documenting this moment and also bringing it on into whatever it's going to be, some sort of future vision maybe for Albania and Tirana. Yeah, so I will come to the program shortly, but we wanted to start with something different because I think this moment is in the end maybe about connecting to each other. I think you've heard of each other, but maybe this is the first time that you actually see each other in real life. But it's also connecting or reconnecting to the city. And just to ease into the day, we just want to pause for 1 second and listen to the city that has given us so much and that we will give back to.
Thank you, Michiel. So before we dive into all the conversations and stories, we thought it was good maybe to ground ourselves here in Tirana and to experience the environment. We can listen outside, to experience the environment through listening together. So we propose to take a moment to slow down. And maybe we can try first to listen to the furthest away sound that we can hear. And now slowly we can travel back into this room, and maybe you can try to listen to the sound that is closest to you. And now perhaps we can listen to a sound that is very old, that has been here for a very long time. And finally, we can try to listen maybe into the future. What will we hear here in Tirana in 25 years from now, or 50 years from now? So let's see if during the day there's moments where we can slow down again and listen out for the future and to come back here. And then we can dive into the program.
Yes. So, as said, 40 speakers today, divided over 4 rounds with a long break, because in the end it's about hospitality. Looking forward to that. Before that, there's 2 rounds with multiple speakers that we will introduce one after the other. And we're going to travel through time, basically. So we're going to start with looking back, talking to some people, reflecting on their first experiences here. Then, also prompted by the Prime Minister, who insisted on also showing some vulnerability, we'll be talking about mistakes that people might have made, productive failures and lessons learned from those experiences. And then I think all of us together will start looking into the future, what's next for Tirana, for Albania, for architecture in the city and the country, and hopefully we can all join that conversation. I hope you all received the program with all the details. Otherwise, I think it's distributed around the room. Maybe just a very personal note, this is the second time I'm here. Obviously, we're not Albanian, also good to acknowledge. We don't master the language. I've been here once before in 2010. I met with the Prime Minister, then in his capacity as the mayor of Tirana. And this is basically before it all started. At least there was nothing really visible in terms of foreign architects and new developments. But there was this big promise and plans, and I was a bit doubtful, because on that same trip I went to Bilbao, I went to Marseille, I went to Manchester to compare these cities, and I thought Tirana is kind of underwhelming compared to Bilbao, for example. But fast forward 15 years on, and here we are in a completely different Tirana. Incredible new developments popping up all around us. Truly exhilarating, inspiring, but also, I know, I'm also a bit overwhelmed by it. And I think this is what I wanted to share with you. Maybe you also have this feeling of the scale and the scope of what is going on. I think we're here together now to try to make sense of it, and maybe slowly but gradually find a common ground and a shared language to start rethinking maybe what is happening here, and to prepare ourselves for the future. Yeah. So what we would like to, for all of you to maybe start thinking is, what are you wishing for the future of Albania? And this is, of course, primarily aimed also at the younger Albanians who are gathering here. There's the Albanian young architects who have a kiosk just over there. They're collecting inputs from all of you. But maybe you can think along what's next for Albania. And maybe you can also try to be frank with yourself, and maybe already start to think, like, having worked here, what maybe did not go so well. I think this is also a moment for all of us to pause before we move on and really start to kind of unpack what has happened here. So a moment of critical reflection and of forward looking. Maybe these are the questions also for the Prime Minister, who I would like to invite now on stage and welcome all of us. Eddie Rama.
Today happens to be Bayram, a sacred day, a national holiday, welcomed by all Albanians, regardless of faith. It is a day rooted in a story that belongs to Muslims, Christians, Jews, and perhaps most of all, to the shared spiritual memory of humanity. A story that travels through time, belief, and geography, and arrives with uncanny relevance at the very heart of why we are here today. Abraham receives a vision. In the Islamic tradition, this vision persists, repeating over several nights, and in that faith, when a dream repeats, it ceases to be a dream. It becomes an instruction, a message, an order, a divine command: sacrifice your son, Ismail. The father does not hide it, he tells the son, and the boy, young, lucid, unshaken, replies, "Do as you are commanded. You will find me among the steadfast." And so they walk, father and son, toward the unthinkable, not in fear, but in peace, toward a moment that will test the essence of faith, not blind obedience, but radical trust. And just as the blade is lifted, a ram appears. The sacrifice is redirected, the life is spared, the command is fulfilled, not through death, but through surrender. Because what was truly laid on the altar that day was not a child, it was the ego, the possessiveness, the illusion of control. And what remained was the most enduring offering of all, the bond between a dream and the trust to carry it forward. This is the meaning celebrated today, not the ritual, but the release, not the knife, but the mercy, not the power to take, but the grace to give, not the offering of flesh, but of self. And that, in its own quietly radical way, is precisely why we gather here. Because Albania, we all know it, is not a country that draws the world's most visionary architects with money or glitter or promises. It draws them with something far more difficult to define, yet impossible to fake. A shared belief in the realness of a dream and the trust that it can be carried, not even here, but especially here. Something alive, something unrepeatable, something still free, astonishingly so, from the suffocating comforts of overregulation and pre-packaged certainty. This festival is, in its own way, a Bayram of the spirit, an act of stepping forward, not to dominate the land, but to listen to it, not to impose, but to imagine together, not to sacrifice one vision for another, but to lay down our egos so that something common, something greater can rise in their place. And if this seems like coincidence, this alignment of sacred day and the new beginning, I must say, and trust me, I've come a long way in every sense. And rightly or wrongly, I no longer believe in coincidence. So I invite you, each of you, to feel the connection between this day and this new adventure, to receive this unlikely convergence not as a chance, but as a blessing. Distinguished architects, young and seasoned, precious friends of Albania who have come year after year and month after month from both hemispheres of the earth to join our mighty Albanian Ark Army, united by a shared vision that I dare to define today as follows. Architecture can transform not only spaces, but also minds, not only locations, but also the imagination of a community, its sense of place, its vision of the future, and its self-confidence. Dear guests of the Ark Army, dear local architects, students, developers, and others, a very warm welcome to all of you here today in the living heart of Tirana, in an Albania that today produces more architecture than all the Europe combined, while ascending the final steps that still separate her from the European Olympus. Here today, we embark together on a new adventure, to create a space within a spiritual form, not one where architecture must be built, but where architects must be heard. Heard about what might be the next move to consider or abandon, the next step to take or to avoid, the next challenge to embrace or release. Someone might ask, are these dilemmas about architecture, about policy making, about life itself, or about something else entirely? The truth is, I don't see sharp lines separating them. When I speak of architecture, I find very little that falls completely outside its grasp. Perhaps I'm mistaken, perhaps I'm wholly biased, captivated by my fascination with architecture and the minds that imagine and build it. But I believe deeply and without hesitation that listening to real architects and tracing the threads of their creative process is an exceptional kind of extracurricular education in policymaking. To understand the forces they contend with, forces of nature and of human will, is to glimpse the inner workings of decision-making itself, and to follow the tension in the arc of compromises they must navigate, from the first glimmer of a bold idea to its fragile descent into the terrain of reality, without breaking it, but making it stand tall, is a masterclass in resilience for anyone determined to give form to their own dreams. We are here to place a bold bet on architecture as a catalyst in a democratic process where individuals and communities must constantly negotiate and renegotiate their relationship, both territorial and spiritual, by reflecting on the past and learning how to face the future. We have found a name for the space we are here to start creating: Bread and Heart Festival. We've also found a motto: bring some salt, please. The expression bread, heart, and salt is the unholy trinity of the holy Albanian hospitality. It once captured the traditional spirit of this land and our old code of honor, which demanded that we welcome guests, travelers, and foreigners by sharing all that we had, but never less than bread for the stomach, salt for the taste, and most importantly, the heart for their safety. And so here we are today with a mighty Ark Army on a quest to conquer the future, pausing for a moment to give birth to a festival that, in addition to a name and a motto, also has a goal: to shape with our bread and our heart a destination an annual rendezvous with the future here in Albania. Yes, around renowned architects, but not only about them, not only about their certainties, accomplishments, or trophies, but about what perplexes, disturbs, angers, moves, provokes, and inspires them. The point is to share a space, as if it were a question, to reflect on the doubts we carry, the hopes we nurture, and the dreams we still believe are worth chasing. There is something now puzzling, now disturbing in this world common. Once the foundation of community, the word common, it now feels elusive, even threatening. In an age where hyper-individualism is rewarded and curated echo chambers masquerade as connection, what we have in common is slipping through our fingers, not necessarily from malice, but through distraction, fatigue, and forgetfulness. We forget how to listen, how to disagree without division, how to build without dominating, how to share without suspicion. And sometimes those who rescue the word common do so only to divide further, to mobilize it in sinister ways, to exclude, to demarcate boundaries, to create hierarchies of belonging. And so this is precisely what we are here called to confront. A world of multiplying crises, natural and man-made, where the very idea of we is under siege, where polarization thrives on fear and dialogue drones in noise, where success is measured by distance rather than closeness, and personal ambition often forgets its responsibility to the whole. So this gathering is not just a celebration of architecture, but a kind of architecture in itself, a human construction built on the fragile ruins of what we have inherited and of the dreams of what we still hope to become. It is an invitation to remember and to create, to remember what it means to have something in common, both in trauma and in aspiration, and to create what is still lacking, and more urgently, to remember how to share it. Like ancient builders who raised temples not only to shelter gods, but to hold communities and receive very distant guests. Or like those who, in the wreckage of war, rebuilt not just homes but hopes. We too are called to build, not monuments of stone, but spaces of meaning, not just structures of concrete, but bones of understanding. That is why it matters deeply that some of the most visionary architects of our time, from Europe, the Americas, Japan, South Korea, China, have chosen to gather here in Albania, not as distant observers of an obscure culture, nor as solitary stars casting light on foreign ground, but as participants in a shared experiment, building not just in a place, but with the place. They arrive carrying the weight and grace of their traditions, with ideas shaped by their cities and their climates, their histories and their materials, and the burdens of crisis too. Crisis back home, crisis felt across a world that is shrinking by the hour, crisis of their own making. And here in Albania, something special happens. They are not only received, they are hosted. Not only hosted, but integrated. Integrated by a country and a people whose landscape is as varied as its past and whose natural and human patterns are equally hard to trace. Perhaps because of that very unpredictability, because there is no repetition, there is no simplification, there is no routine. The past is tragic and the future daring. Memory remains raw and experience remains porous, very open to sharing. From this meeting between what they bring and what they find emerges something neither imported nor native, but born in between, a synthesis, a conversation not only in concrete texture and light, but in blood, flesh, and time. Not a collage of styles, but a communion of intentions, a waving of narratives, visions, and vulnerabilities. What emerges here is not just a building, but a shared authorship of place, a collective authorship where singular signatures dissolve into something greater, and each hand, each eye, each memory becomes a trace, connected to another trace, to another trace, to another trace, like footprints forming a path. And maybe this is the most precious part, that in building here, architects don't simply leave a contribution or a mark, they carry something forward. They help us see not one path, but many. Sometimes in straight lines, sometimes in circles, drawing a geometry of belonging. There is real energy in what architecture can generate, an energy that flows through us, that transforms us, and reshapes the place itself. An energy sparked by Albania's questions and our shared ambition to answer them for the good, not only of Albania, but also of each participating country, our continents, and why not, our common world. An energy drawn from the urgencies of our time and transformed into the collective will to respond, not just out of professional curiosity, but from the human impulse to understand. And that is where true beauty lies, in the moment we meet each other beyond our roles, beyond our resumes, in that rare space where professional knowledge melts into human instinct, where design stands beside doubt and skill walks with vulnerability. It is there in that quiet tension that something strong and lasting is built, not just in architecture, but through architecture for all of us. I'm genuinely moved today because it's fair to say, in front of so many remarkable minds, I hate calling them stars, by the way, that Albania has become a harbor of hope, not as a slogan, but as a lived experience for international architects now arriving in numbers we couldn't have even imagined just a few years ago. And for developers too, I must say, who are slowly learning that hope doesn't grow by avoiding higher standards, but by rising to meet them, by discovering the deeper value of what they built, not just for their own gain, but for this country, not just for their pockets, but for the country of their children, and not just for our country, but yes, for the world. Tirana today is not longer just a stage, it is a catalyst, not just a location, but a collaborator. The projects born in Albania aren't local mediocrities or global cliches. They are alive, resonant, and relevant, because they emerge from the fusion of what is deeply rooted and what is radically open. And in a world obsessed with icons, authorship, and ownership, what is quietly unfolding here feels almost subversive, the making of something truly common, yet like nothing else. This is what this festival celebrates, and more importantly, what it dares to build upon, the truly common, not as nostalgic memory or utopian slogan, but as an ongoing act of creation. A beautiful sign of this spirit is in the guests brought by the army. Many came not with staff or apprentices, but with companions from other walks of life, people who may never draw a line, but who carry what matters most, the human experience of a unique gift. They remind us the future isn't built alone, and certainly not within the borders of our own expertise. Architecture may be the clearest example of this, and these guests matter precisely because they bring something that is not technical, but emotional, cultural, intuitive. They bring stories, contradictions, questions. They bring the kind of wisdom that professional spaces often forget. And by doing so, they complete the picture. Because this festival is not about architecture as a profession. It is about architecture as the closest human act to the divine. The act of creating spaces where life can happen, grow, and protect itself. Where our ancient need to belong, to connect, and to leave a mark becomes something we can all share. If what is truly common begins not with certainty or tools, but with courage to let others in, and the humility to be changed by their presence, then this festival, beginning today, is exactly the right thing, at exactly the right time, in exactly the right place. Let's see where it leads. But wherever it does, or even if it leads nowhere, let's make sure that while we are together, the bread is abundant, the heart is wide open, and the salt is never missing when it's needed. Thank you.
Thank you, Prime Minister, for being so generous with giving us these words and these carefully crafted stories that I think help us all understand the significance of this moment. And also thank you for your plea to lay down our egos and start engaging with each other and make this a collective effort. With that, I would like to give the word to Mark, who will introduce our first guest.
Yes, it is time for our first conversations. The first round is kind of an opening round in which we will set the stage and set the agenda for the festival today, but also Albania's architecture culture more generally. We're going to start with an encounter. I would like to invite Freek, Persyn and Reinier de Graaf to come forward and sit with me. Reinier de Graaf is, please come sit here, is an author of books exploring the contradictions, hypocrisies, and capitalist entanglements of contemporary architecture. But he's also an architect. He's a partner at OMA, and he was in charge for Mangalam 21, which is the largest housing complex built in Albania since the fall of the communist regime. Freek Persyn is also here. He is a professor of architecture and urban transformation at ETH Zurich. He is also a founding partner of 51N4E, who have been active and involved in the urban transformation of Tirana for over 15 years. I had prepared a set of questions for Reinier and Freek, but they told me they'd rather have a conversation on their own because they had some questions to ask each other. So please.
Well, I thought that was the format of the... okay, do you start or do I start? Or?
I think it's better that you start, because yeah, probably you can all witness that I'm very moved by what is just said, and I cannot hide it.
Okay. So you were one of the very first foreign architects to work in Albania. I think it's more than 20 years ago to the day. It was before Rama was Prime Minister. It's a time I think almost nobody remembers. And just what I want to ask you, what was it like? How did you get involved? What was it like then? What has changed since then? And how has your work or your building or architecture in general played a role in that change in your view?
So I'll start listening and breathing to recompose myself. From my perspective, I arrived here 20 years ago, which is actually not so long, 2003 or 2004, and it was coming out of an attendance I did at the Abhelakh Institute in... Is there something happening?
Oh, there was supposed to be images.
Okay.
There's supposed to be images. They will show up probably.
I thought there were images listing our mistakes. No, that was the...
Yeah.
They're here.
So this is Johan, who is now sitting there. His hairstyle has changed. So maybe you can stand up for a second. Okay. No, so it was a combination of being present at an investigation that Eddie had launched together with the Abhelakh Institute in Rotterdam to think about Tirana as a metropolis. So a lot of people were coming into the city. It was like a sprawl. It was, and so together with students, there was an investigation of how the future could look. And this was combined with that kind of moments of arriving in this country, and the first thing that was striking was demolition, because illegal buildings were being demolished. And so rather than a country in construction, it was a country deconstructing itself in order to create space, to create something new. And so it was a very harsh experience of imagining a kind of future on paper and in models, and then living this reality of breaking down and cleaning up. And that's the beginning.
Would you, maybe Freek, would you like to say what is so moving to you in this moment?
Well, what is moving to me is that I feel that these words are true. Sorry. And I can also explain it maybe in my own words, is that this idea that people have dreams and that they have issues, that this is a very nice way of dealing with architecture and with creating something. This is not that you do what you have to do, but you do what you want to do, and you try to do it within all of the mess that is there, and you navigate that space. And that's very liberating, and it comes with a lot of responsibility, of course. But the fact that he's able to articulate the same thing that I feel is not, yeah, it's quite rare. I find it's, yeah. Yeah, sorry.
That's beautiful. Thanks for sharing that. Reinier, maybe we can look at some of your images. If we can move to that presentation. Because you already said so, I thought we were supposed to talk about our mistakes today and our failures. And yesterday we visited the Mangalem project, which I think is very inspiring. While we're waiting for the slides to come up, I'll continue talking. Because it's a very lived-in project. It's high-density housing, but it has all these amenities, and people have appropriated these spaces and have interpreted this according to their needs and dreams. And
is there a mistake in the technology?
Yes, we're waiting for the for the images to come up. So
maybe I start speaking.
Yeah, let's do that.
So I'm also deeply moved, even if I may not carry the external hallmarks of being moved in the same way as Freek has just displayed. I am moved, but more than that, I am curiously bewildered by Albania. First of all, because it is a country that has an evident faith in internationalism when the whole world is retreating back into nationalism, xenophobia, and everything. And I find it an almost admirable way of going against the global grain that I for a small country, I think is deeply admirable. It is multicultural, it is international, it is also multi-religious in a way that also not very many countries manage. And in tandem, it has an enormous faith in architecture and architects that is also increasingly rare in the world. I mean, almost wherever I work, I notice that architects, even though welcomed in name, are increasingly only there because of their name and increasingly symbolic. And I think, or at least what I've experienced so far, is that there is a genuine interest to engage with architecture more than architects, more with the work of an architect than works of architecture per se. And I find that it's become so rare that I find we got our mistakes meanwhile. Yeah. So this is a project, and I on purpose took the least, these are photographs from my iPhone, and they barely made the resolution requirement of the day, I think. But for me, this is the grounding of our project. For me, these are the most flattering images of our project because they show a degree of acceptance, of a kind of creative disrespect of Albanians for the work of an architect that I think is a sort of an architecture in its own right, and where it's, I guess, the common reflex of an architect to be extremely dismayed and angry about how dare they. I actually find it a huge tribute to our project, and particularly the last one, if it shows you, this one, and this one also, that in fact, even in the flower pots, there is a kind of respect for our color schemes in the form of a careful color blocking of the geraniums. So with that, I think it's also a wonderful evidence of Albanian architecture and Albanian creativity, which I hope to see more of. I understand Aya is present today, and I would like to encourage anybody who has an interest in working for our office to apply. We are all here. We can take your emails and offer jobs.
And you mean you're specifically talking to young Albanian architects?
Specifically to young Albanian architects to come and join the other side of the geraniums.
Yeah, because this is one of the questions, right? How do we kind of ground this architecture culture and help flourish it for Albania? Freek, what are your thoughts about that, or questions?
Yeah, it's striking to see this sudden rise of people arriving and being motivated and starting to work. And it took us, I think, 8 years to build the Plaza Hotel. So it was very slow that a certain proof was built. But I think projects like the Plaza Hotel and others have suddenly created the belief, demonstrated the belief that something is possible. And so there's a belief, kind of vortex, which brings all of these people here, which is truly amazing. But indeed, in the slipstream of that, we have been working with Albanian architects who have, of course, built their work and their life in the slipstream of that dynamic. And because of how the education of architects in Albania was focusing a lot on engineering, I think this foreign influx was very important, because architecture is not just about engineering, clearly. But of course, yeah, the people who are young now, like I was young back then, also want trust and opportunities and want to try out, and they want to fail as well. And so that's extremely important. And so there's this kind of two dynamics of, like, suddenly you have the Valhalla of the best architects, and then you have the kind of pool of people who might be good architects or maybe not, but still want to try. And I think it's indeed, that's a wonderful plea that you do to create a collaboration with an office as big as and as international as yours to build that bridge. I think, yeah, that's really, I think if this kind of conversation could start, would be amazing.
I really liked how you talked about, I think you said a vortex of belief. Right? And it's kind of, this space feels a bit like a vortex of belief at this moment. It's also your firm designed this building. And I think you explicitly, you were kind of vouching for this to be a public space or a common space for people to come together in whatever form. How do you think about this? Because there's all this talk about, you know, there's so much freedom for architects in Albania, but how do you think about the responsibility of this freedom?
Yeah, I think we had the luck of the fact that we had to be slow, so we could absorb a lot and we could learn a lot. And for instance, what I appreciate in the city, that people are alive and they can express themselves in the public domain. You manage to make a project where this continues and is ongoing and it's not cleaned out. I think so. Like, what does an architectural project still enable that is there today and which is appreciated when we walk around in the city as humans, but suddenly as a professional you think, no, this is wrong. So I think this is an important exercise because there's no brief. So there's like people come with you and they have this kind of very vague notion of that they want a building. And so you're building the brief as an architect. And so in that sense you have the possibility to give ideas to people that only have maybe a limited understanding of what a building can do. And suddenly you can expand this understanding. And here, for instance, yeah, we pushed the cores of the building to the side. So they're and there's 5 cores, because maybe today the idea is that it's a hotel, but maybe in the future it's an office. So all of these things will change. And so somehow you create a backbone of all of these changes and all of these possibilities. And that's a huge, I think that's the most powerful moment as an architect, when you can give people ideas of, do you know that you can do this? And convince them and see possibilities.
Yeah, so you're designing affordances somehow. I get the sense that our time is up already. The program is so full today.
I'm the one who's going to be the bad cop here. But I want to thank you so much for, well, I think sharing and showing your vulnerability in different ways and setting the stage. And hopefully others will also be willing to open up and share their stories. Thank you so much. Now we're going to move on to Katia.
Thank you. So I think most of you have received a wish card for the future of Albania. You're very much invited to express your wish in any form on the card and leave it here in the middle of our arena before the lunch break. So now I would like to invite to the stage Carme Pigem, Stephen Holl, Kengo Kuma, and Precht, please. So this is the first of what we call the short input session, where we invite our guests to give a short input to the main question of this round. And we would like to ask them what is next for Tirana and Albania in terms of architecture and spatial development, and also how can we work towards a grounded design practice. And I would like to start, Carme, with you, Carme Pigem, one of the founders of RCR Architectes, also a Pritzker Prize winner in 2017, and as a collective, I think your practice has really been valued for stressing the local values and the rootedness and working with place, and currently working on a project here in Tirana and also outside in the region. Carme, can I give the floor to you?
Thank you. Good morning. I'm Carme, the CEO of RCR Arquitectes. And I'm here and now grateful, committed, and attentive. 13 months after receiving the call from the Prime Minister on Sunday, May 5th, to discuss a project at the entrance of Tirana. That call was a wake-up call that led us to embark on an immersive journey about Albania, its landscape, its people, its idiosyncrasies, its prime minister, its history, and the vibrant moment in the country's development. It reminded me of what I felt when I was 30 years old and Franco, the Spanish dictator, died. And when, 10 years later, the country entered the European Union, an overwhelming joy and an indescribable desire to move forward. I feel this moment of effervescence again, and it makes me relive the spring which began here after the collapse of the communist regime, when facades were painted with colors, and which now overflow with imagination, color, and boldness throughout the city and the entire country. Honestly, I do not want to believe that this is the golden age of architecture in Albania, or a moment of flourishing that is about to deflate. I want to strongly believe that is the establishment of a cutting-edge laboratory that, in a sustained and growing manner, seeks to harness the transformative capacity of society through the power of a space. Isn't it great? This laboratory could be based on the 3 elementary principles: dreams, nature, and community. For a society that has lived in silence for fear that the walls could listen, as is evident from books such as The Successor by Ismail Kadare or Free by Leah Ipi, the most important thing to transform this society from the space is to create a spaces where we can share, where we can meet, awakening the taste for community and to widen the gradient of privacy. Not painting walls, but tearing them down. Not raising boundaries, but connections, overflowing with the value that defines the society, hospitality. With communities of all kinds, with concentric circles that grow and intersect. Here we have the architectural community, large, growing, with intersects with other disciplines. Also, with other technicians, clients, managers, administration, the Albanian community and those outside Albania, between resident Albanians and exiled Albanians, between atheistic and religious Albanians, between Muslim, Christian, or Jewish, between architects of matter and space, between architects of forms and space, architects of light and friendship. And the connections we want to build extend towards nature, because we are part of it, in this country where nature has been preserved with a powerful beauty, fully varied and contrast that is difficult to find in an extension of territory of this size, which goes from high mountains to calm seas, with cliffs or wetlands, with rivers, with the only natural European river or lakes, with 750,000 bunkers that have become stone soldiers protecting a territory. Let's make sure that it does not become a land to speculate on, or even a landscape to admire. Let's merge and melt with it, with our spaces for life. And we must do everything without stopping dreaming. On the contrary, because everything becomes with a dream that gives meaning to our life on the path of making it a reality. Here, the dream is to be Europe. Europe has the dream that Albania will bring it a spring that it does not feel. The dream is to return the Albanians who are far away. The dream is to create a community of diverse religions that can grow together. We have the dream of leaving the self behind and focusing on the us. We have the dream of creating spaces that fill our homes and our cities with life and well-being, and be even better host. We are now living a dream come true, sharing in this physical and temporal space a collective energy that must bring us learning and grow, rooted in a spirit of sharing. The experience belongs to each one, but there is a collective intelligence to be enhanced that begins thanks to initiatives like this. If we can reveal and grow what we have in common, which is much more than we believe, but we must even achieve that it were more and make it grow to overcome what separates us and reach one by one the collective dreams that we glimpse. And this is how we will manage to create, sustain, and grow the Albanian cutting-edge laboratory of the space without any end. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Carmen, for these beautiful words. I would like to introduce Kengo Kuma, a Japanese architect, founder of Kengo Kuma and Associates, professor at University of Tokyo, and mostly well known also for the Butrint National Park Visitor Center that we still hope to visit while we're here. Floor is yours. Thank you so much.
Thank you. My first impression of Albania is my first visit to Albania is more than 10 years, but the project Butrint started 3 years, and my impression first impression is Albania is very similar to Japan. Size-wise, both is not big country, but mainly it's just coming from the history. I was born in 1954 in Yokohama. At that time, it was just 9 years from Second World War. Just 9 hours of atomic bomb. And my family came from Nagasaki, we know the history of atomic bombs. And after that kind of damage, Japan recovered very fast. I still remember the atmosphere of 1950s. I felt some similarity with Albania and Japan. And another similarity is topography of Albania. Albania is a country of the mountain. There's a lot of mountains. And Butrint is, it took us 4 hours from here to Butrint, the mountain valley. And the importance of the topography is topography and culture and the personality is very much related, I feel. The topography is a valley. The valley is good for diversity. The big flat land is difficult to create diversity, but the valley, small valley, mountains, that rhythm is very important for creating uniqueness and diversity. And also the craftsmanship is very much related with this kind of topography. The craftsman is living in the small valley. So in Japan, especially north of Japan, up north area, there are many valleys, and still the craftsmanship remains in that kind of valley. And Albania maybe that kind of the craftsmanship remains, and I wanted to work with them. The craftsmanship of the stones and the plaster work and the woodwork, and those kind of things is very important for the country. The craftsmanship is a bridge between the topography and culture of the place. And also the topography is related with generosity. Albania has famous for generosity, multicultural, multi-religions. It's same as in Japan. In Japan, we have Shintoism, Buddhism, and Christians, and the Islamic. So we have many religions. But the people are living peacefully, and that kind of diversity and the generosity is very important for future of the world, especially in this moment of the situation. The diversity, generosity is very important. Albania can be the model of future of the world. And that kind of diversity is controlled, is governed by the leadership, cultural leadership. Rama he is that kind of cultural leader of the country. The same in Japan. We have the emperor. Emperor has no army. Emperor is just a cultural symbol of the country. This is important in Japan. So now, after Second World War, that system disappeared, and we should think about what is the future system. But as Albania can be the good model of the new leadership. And then to work in Albania, for me, is very exciting. And to work with similarity, work based on the similarity, and those are the project. It's a between project. Yep. Those are the example of that kind of the similarity.
Thank you so much, Kengo. Then I would like to introduce Stephen Holl, architect and artist as well. You're working on a very exciting project here, Expo Albania, combining a convention center, hotel, and I think also a wine museum, and also really bringing an artistic approach. So can I give the floor to you?
Thank you. I was trying to think, what is this moment in history? What could even compare? And I thought of Mitterrand and the grand projects, but Mitterrand could not paint like Eddie Rama can paint. This is a hand-painted Eddie Rama. You know, I was excited to speak about failures. About 4 months ago, they said, oh, we're going to give you 2 times to speak. You can speak about your projects here and describe them in detail, and you can speak about your failures. So I thought, wow, we have done over 130 competitions. I mean, I've been doing this for 50 years. I'm older than Kengo Kuma. And in 130 competitions, we win about 1 in 5. But our office wouldn't exist without that opportunity. And it's the reason I'm here, because we won the Expo in 2024, the 25th of April in 2024. But then they said, no, you're not going to be able to speak about your failures, and you're going to only be given 5 minutes and 5 images. And you're not going to be able to see the images. So I said, what the hell am I going to do? I got to do something that's meaningful to this moment. So I wrote a manifesto. 5 points for Tirana. Number 1, art drives architecture. Number 2, ecological resilience and joy. Number 3, urbanisms, working with doubt. Number 4, the haptic realm of material and detail. Number 5, anchoring. Each site is a unique place. And when you think of number 1, art drives architecture, you think about the history of architecture, and there's a moment in 1980 called the presence of the past. That was, postmodernism was everywhere, you know, and I was really arrogant, and we rejected all of Portuguese's thinking, and we were going to do something else. And I was very close to Rem Koolhaas at that time, and Zaha Hadid. And we were really not going to do anything about that. And then you saw in 1987 the deconstructive period. Deconstruction, everything has to be twisted. There's no relation to the structure, to the outside form. And Kenneth Frampton and I was teaching at Columbia University. And of course, Kenneth Frampton couldn't stand the deconstructive period. And we were going to go beyond and do something more solid. And now we get to the point where I say art drives architecture. What do I mean? There is a poetic idea that must drive a design. It's not just something that's cosmetic on the outside. A building must be more when you go in it than when you look at it. And you think about anything could be the beginning of architecture, a poem, a painting, a sculpture, and music. Where my wife, Dimitra Zaccarelia, is writing a book called The Architectonics of Music. And in fact, music is inspiring our, let's say, spatial condition of the tower that we're working on. I don't know where, right. It's an L. It creates urban porosity and public space. And the entire composition is based on the work of Celsi, a composer who died in Rome, who only used a single pitch. So the idea of staying with a single pitch. Ecological resilience and joy. Of course, light and fresh air, 0 fossil fuels. You know, the idea of, you know, making a building that's really ecological. And in this tower, we're doing for the first time, I don't know if you, well, I can't speak to the images, but it's geothermally heated and cooled, but it has a capillary action. It's an exoskeletal facade with only 35% glass. So the window ratio to wall is really on the perfect balance, and the structural frame is expressed, but in the structural frame, there's capillaries that will actually reduce the heat load. Urbanisms. Working with doubt. I think that in every project, you have to think about the city that you're in. It may be something quite unique, and certainly every place is unique, but the idea that a building can be many different functions, I think we were speaking about that earlier, that a good piece of architecture can be reused in different ways. Good space, geometry, light, and air can be reused and refunctioned in many different ways. But I you know, have worked many years in China, and I refused monocultural towers. I was kind of famous about 20 years ago, and I was getting too much work, and I said, no, I will only do hybrid buildings that will create public space. They have to have many functions, and they have to create public space. The haptic realm of material and detail. I'm very concerned that architecture is an experiential phenomena, and therefore, even the door handles, the details, the materials, everything about it. It can't just be a broad brush thing. It's something, you know, I always think about the work of Carlos Scarpa and kind of intimacy of it all. Anchoring, that was my first manifesto written in 1988. The idea right around that time, you had star architects leaving a signature in each city. Their image, their signature was, you know, it was a kind of, it still goes on, but not to criticize them, but I thought must be something completely opposite of that to make a meaning in a site. Every detail, you know, the meaning of a place. So, not a personal style. And I'm sorry, I can't speak to the images because they're not coming up. But anyway, I'm sure there'll be a publication for this event. So I just say 5 points for Tirana. Art drives architecture, ecological resilience and joy, urbanism, working with doubt, the haptic realm of material and detail, and anchoring. Each site is unique.
Thank you so much. All right. Then I would like to introduce the last speaker of this round, Precht, architect from Austria, descended from the Alps for us to be here with us in Tirana. Among others, known also for the Tirana Moons temporary pavilion that is also on show here, if I'm not mistaken, right? Yeah, so you can also witness part of that outside. Yeah, the floor is yours. Yeah.
Hello, everybody. This is honestly quite an emotional time for me and for our studio. We had yesterday this opening of the garden, and I heard a lot of times from architects that came, I don't know you, but this is quite nice. But I actually knew almost everyone who was there. I studied their work, I read their books when I was a student, so somehow all of the guests who came, made me somehow the architect that I maybe one day want to be. So it's quite an emotional time, and like I'm from there. I was born in the mountains, I grew up in the mountains, I studied in the Alps. Now we live and raise kids, and we work there. And it sometimes feels like we are hiding there from the world. When especially the world is sometimes chaotic, this is a really nice place to hide. And then like coming here and sitting on stage with a Pritzker Prize winner and 2 future Pritzker Prize winner, I think this is just possible in Albania at the moment, and this feels very, very special. As an Austrian, my father was a carpenter. As an Austrian, I think I would lose my citizenship if I wouldn't try to bring wood into the world. So we try to bring as much wood to Albania as somehow possible with our work. Sometimes this is possible, sometimes it is not. But what I experienced from Austria, which is somehow the mecca of wood building, is that it was a surprise how fantastic craftsmen and artists and wood builders there are actually in Albania. And we work now with a couple of them, and the joy and the emotion and the passion they bring for the craft is astonishing. So if I would have a vision for the future, it is that everything around that builds on this passion of these people, the forests, the forest management, that it becomes really an industry in itself for the future. So yesterday we inaugurated the garden, which was emotional for me. This project is a journey from you don't understand it probably from the outside, just looking at it. But for me, this is a journey from the water to the peak. And you need to walk yourself through in order to get the feeling for it. And I feel the same somehow about Albania. When I haven't been in the country, it felt like I didn't understand it. But now, since 5 years, you need to experience to really understand and get a feeling for it. The Prime Minister said at one point, Chris, this is probably your best project you will ever do. And I hope you were not right, but if it is, so I think it's downhill from here, but it was a very, very nice experience. And somehow, as a young architect, I lack, as probably a lot of creative, a lack of self-confidence, but the trust that is brought to us and the backing that we have in this country, it really, let me grow as an architect and let me become an architect as well. Like I'm here now since 5 years in the country, almost every month now traveling to Albania. My wife, Faye, is now the first time here, and I told her this morning, yeah, this is every time when I come here, like you meet exactly, like it's this kind of people. Yeah, but it's just incredible what is happening here, and yeah, thank you everybody for that we are part of this transformation of Albania and working with all of you.
Thank you so much, Chris Precht.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you for bringing the wood. Thank you, Stephen Holl, for the beautiful manifesto, Carme Pigem for the beautiful plea for Albania, and Kengo Kuma also for comparing to other localities and histories. And now we are going to do an intervention, because we also have Aimona Hoja, who is leading the Vox Pop interviews with people outside who are bringing grounded perspectives to the room. So, Mona, can I give the word to you?
Thank you so much. Okay, just technical test, it seems. Thank you so much for giving us the floor. In fact, it's very exciting to be here, and it's quite overwhelming to be with young Albanian architects. In fact, I'm sitting here with Tea Mersuli. She's a young Albanian architect that works between Tirana and Bratislava. And she was just telling me about her experience. So I actually would like to have her impression and see how do you see we can work towards a more grounded design practice, and what do you think is the next for Tirana and Albania in terms of architecture and spatial development?
Hello everybody. I would have to go back in time. I left Albania when I was 18. That was 12 years ago. And while I was abroad, I noticed that somehow we became part of an international discussion about architecture. And it became so much that wherever I went, people asked me, professors, architects, and tourists about Albania. So it became a duty to join the call. And it became a moment when I felt that I had to somehow bring some of know-how or my own contribution back home, and also bring some part from Albania abroad. So in one moment I joined as lead architect the chess studio Hibi Kristov. I'm also a PhD candidate, and I'm working with the Czech Academy of Science and Slovak Academy of Science. We are working with universities in Albania. We are researching the cultural institutions in Albania. I'm collaborating with Destil and many other artists in Albania. So in one moment I try to be here as much as I can. And I think I'm not only one, and I want to focus on this. I'm just one of many other girls that I know that are working in Germany, in France, in Spain, UK, Italy. And I think it's a moment for the junior diaspora to join the call and contribute in this moment. And I think we can be a very interesting bridge between the international studios and the local community. And we can become precisely that bridge that exports from Albania and imports in Albania. And I think that can be something crucial for creating a system that will be long-term tradition in architecture in Albania. So this is my, my review for the moment.
That's fascinating. If I can also ask you, what are your wishes about the future of the architecture and spatial development in our beautiful Tirana, but also our country?
I'm very interested in cultural architecture, in public architecture. I think the focus of the future in architecture will be precisely public architecture and community building and sustainability. So I wish that in the future we can have festivals like this when we can go deeper and deeper in these topics.
That sounds amazing, and I really hope this energy stays with us very long to give more voice and empower our young Albanian generation. Thank you so much. The floor is for you, Beck.
Thank you, I'm Mona, and thank you for... We'll be getting back to you every now and then. Yeah, we continue with Anneke Abhelakh. We thought the festival is called Bread and Heart, Bring Some Salt, Please. Maybe we could add some pepper. So we have a few pepper interventions, and we're starting with Anneke Abhelakh, a curator, also trained as an architect, who started her career at the Netherlands Architecture Institute, curator of many exhibitions, also artistic director of the TSAT, the Architecture Center in Zurich. And of course, most people here probably know you now as the curator of the Albanian Pavilion that is digging deeper into this idea of building an architectural culture. We're really happy to have you with us, and the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you all for inviting me. 12 September 2024 was my first day in Tirana, ever. The first person I shook hands with was the President Herzog of Israel. Shortly after that day, I fell in love. with a square. So you asked me to bring pepper. Everyone else was asked to bring salt. Maybe it sounded playful, maybe it was. But pepper has a history. It built empires, it burns, it traveled oceans. You asked me to bring pepper, perhaps unaware that centuries ago, men wrote travelogues describing women looking exactly like me as Malabar spice, a fiery, exotic creature. Priced not like the salt of the earth, but more pricey than gold, shipped and traded like ingredients. This isn't seasoning, it's exoticization. So I accepted the challenge. Building architecture culture, which is the title of the Albanian pavilion, means exactly that. Creating spaces where ideas can live, breathe, and be contested. It's more than bricks and mortar. It's about why we build, who decides, and how those decisions shape the world around us. To build culture is to build conversations, to invite voices that have been long overlooked, to question assumptions, and to open the floor for reflection, critique, and new imagination. So, my talk is an invitation to step into that room together, where we already are, and explore what architecture can be beyond form and function, and why the spaces we create matter as much as the spaces we occupy. I just wanted to check if my images are behind me. So, Jody Dean in Comrade, it's a book called An Essay on Political Belonging, traces the word comrade to the Latin camera, meaning room or chamber. In the 16th century, it came to mean someone who shares a room. Camarada in Spanish, for example, referred to a person close enough to eat and sleep in the same house. She writes, a chamber or room is a repeatable structure that takes its form by producing an inside, separate from the outside, and provided a supported cover for those underneath it. Sharing a room, sharing a space, generates a closeness. Comradeship is a political relation of supported cover. So when I say I bring memory, I mean it literally and politically. Because right now there's, how many? 400 architects in the room, sharing air, sharing time, sharing questions of what should be built and why. This isn't just a gathering. It's a space we've made by being here together. Jody Dean reminds us that the word comrade comes from camera, a room. To be comrades is to share a chamber, to offer each other supported cover. And maybe that's where building architecture begins, in the shared room, not just of ideas, but of attention, not just of critique, but of care. A room where no one completes the dish alone, because we're all bringing something that changes it. We're in a room, not just a physical space, but a charged one, thick with ambition, memory, and power. If this was a chapter in Delirious New York, I would call it the room of complicity and hope. If it was a room in the Power Broker, we would follow the seams of bureaucracy, the zoning maps, the backroom deals, the charisma that builds empires, and the silences that lets them fall. We're here to draft a story about building architecture culture, not as an accident of capital, not as a decorative layer of politics, but as a deliberate act of spatial imagination and collective power. Architecture culture is not just about buildings, it's about who gets to speak, who gets invited in, and what kind of room we are willing to build for disagreement, for learning, for futures not yet drawn. In this room with many architects, we have the chance to resist the myth that architecture is the work of lone geniuses. We know better. Culture is built in clusters, in committees, in coffee breaks, in drawings that get marked up and sent back again. It's built in translation, in tension, in repetition. So the question is, can we author a culture where architecture is not just celebrated after the fact, but shaped in public, in process, in the company of comrades? So I started with 60 hours of Zoom to try to understand the build production in Albania. It's called out of these interviews, I made a movie. It's called The Albanian Calls. It's a video essay, and I interviewed 50 of the architects working here in Albania, and I asked all of them exactly the same questions. The diverse geographies, their context, and their very diverse architectural positions made their answers a kind of Rorschach test, revealing a spectrum of hopes, challenges, and contradictions about architectural practice in a rapidly changing country. I interwove the movie with archival footage from Albania's... can we see my second and third slide, please? Because this is a movie. Okay, so interwoven with archival footage from Albania's Marxist-Leninist isolation and its 1990s transition, the film examines how architecture shapes national identity while reflecting on complex agency of architects navigating political and cultural transformation. The Albanian Calls is not a fiction, nor a manifesto. It's a collective transcript of practice under pressure, an assembled voice that maps architecture entanglement with politics, place, and identity. Albania, once sealed by ideology, now becomes a lens through which the shifting nature of architectural agency is made visible. Across times and screen borders, architecture reflects, argue, and listen, producing not consensus, but a shared sense of urgency. The archival films, once tools of propaganda, now function as context, reminders of how architecture has always mediated the image of a nation. What emerges is not a single narrative, but a collective portrait of a profession learning to listen, to slow down, and to build with care. In a country still writing its own rules, architects encounter a rare kind of freedom, a freedom with consequences. This is Albania, not as a site of nostalgia or rescue, but as a frontier of architectural imagination. And maybe, just maybe, this unregulated edge will show Europe that real architecture culture doesn't emerge from guidelines alone, but from discomfort, proximity, and debate. This is not a finished dish. This is the heat, this is the room, this is the call. So they say pepper doesn't ask if you like it. It just asks how much you can take of it. Some sweet, some boast, some sweat, some boast, some pretend don't to feel anything. Architecture in Albania, exactly the same. Everybody thinks they can handle the heat until the brief arrives. And the brief is simple. More square meters, more floors, more visibility, preferred on an untouched coastline. Here, architecture isn't just construction, it's currency, it's an economic driver, a promise of growth, tourism, progress. Buildings are asked to perform, not just as shelters, but as symbols, as investments. This is not a blank slate, it's a business plan in concrete. But when the developer offers only quantity, it's the architect who must supply the rest. Vision, ethics, restraint or not. No regulation to push back, no public debate to slow you down. The ego is free to roam. And every proposal becomes a test. Will you build what you can or what you should? This is where character shows. Architecture here is a pressure cooker with no recipe, no timer, just heat. The Albanian Calls was born in that heat. Can we see the third image? This is the last one. Yeah, the next one. The film begins with a book, a study of building production, and a rare insight with how things get made. Oh, sorry, this is so. So I have actually one proposal. Maybe it's time. Oh, sorry, I'm a little bit. The Albanian calls captures this moment, a crucible where the freedom to build also means the freedom to choose what not to build. A nation as laboratory, architects both experimenters and subjects. It's time to reward not only what is built, but those who commission with courage and care. I want to make a proposal. A prize for the client, for the commissioner. Not for the flashiest tower, but for the client who says, take your time, and who asks for less and means it, who values depth, who seeks space that remembers its place, and who understands that time is not a delay. It's an essential condition of thoughtful design. The one who knows that the best flavors takes time to steep, and the best buildings start with a pause. So that first day in Albania feels like many years ago, with so many projects, people, and new thoughts, and I'm still fully in love with that square. So.
Thank you so much, Anneke. Sorry for the technical glitches. It's learning by doing. Maybe it's a failure on our side. And thank you also for reminding us of the meaning and the weight of words, and also for introducing many meanings of the word pepper. And with that, we're gonna have kind of a gift, maybe to the festival, to all of us. Someone who is not able to join us physically is gonna appear on the screen now. It's Álvaro Siza, joining us from Portugal with a video message. No need to introduce him, but architect, a Pritzker Prize winner, and living legend.
Prime Minister of the Republic of Albania, dear Rama. Unfortunately, I will not be able to go to Albania as was my wish. I once visited the Adriatic coast while making projects for the Milian Chapel in Croatia. Camilo Rebelo, designing a high-rise building in Tirana, had spoken to me with enthusiasm of a country where architecture is not considered a necessary luxury or mainly business. He showed me a film that registered the work of a mayor renovating the city of Tirana and hoping a better life of a willing and participating population. He took me to the Centena Art Gallery in Porto, which was showing the work of the mayor of the city and the current Prime Minister of the Republic of Albania, Rama. Colored tiles spread on the floor, small drawn and painted pieces of paper scattered along the walls. The ceramic sculpture with seemingly raised arms, like in a joyful parade. The scattered piece of the paper could not stop vibrating. You could almost hear imaginary cheering. Later we met in Porto. In the meantime, I received the invitation for a plan in the Adriatic coast. I accepted with enthusiasm and suggest sharing the design with Camilo Rebelo and the engineer Jorge Nunes da Silva. The project develops with ease and dialogue. I hope I may rise to the proof of trust this invitation manifests.
Really beautiful. Now there's a short musical performance And after that, we will continue with the second round, so stay put.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Hello, everyone. My name is René Boer. I'm also part of Loom. Welcome to the second round of this long day. We're a bit delayed, but I will make sure we have a joyful pace to make sure your lunch break wouldn't be too much delayed either. Also, for the people who are still standing, there's also a few chairs here, or also feel free to make you comfortable here on these beautiful carpets here in the middle. I was also about to recap everything that we learned in the first round, but maybe for the sake of keeping time, I would just like to echo some of the words of the Prime Minister, calling on architects to step forward, not to dominate the land, but to contribute. I think something beautiful to keep in mind today. And so I would suggest we just jump right into the next encounter between Stefano Boeri and Winy Maas. Asking both of them to come to the front, please. Where are you? Stefano and Winy. Yeah. All right. So Winy Maas, architect, co-founder of MVRDV, known for multiple projects here in Tirana, most notably also the wonderful transformation of the pyramid. And Stefano Boeri, welcome, architect, founder of Stefano Boeri Architects, also known for various residential and school buildings here in Tirana, and of course the master plan, also has an office here in Tirana. But first, we'd like to start with Winy Maas to share some thoughts with us today.
I think today is also a moment, hopefully, to have different ways of presenting and different ways of talking. I would like to take you to, because I was asked to look back and to look forward. And let me try to do that, like in 2 minutes, 2.5 minutes, to what we can think about what's next, please. Can you? Albania, a while ago, next. It was 25 years ago when I entered. It was the poorest country in Europe, in a Europe that was fighting for itself, next. So what could we then imagine next? So it was beautiful to think about Albania 2.0 after this 1.0 situation. How, from the lowest, say, income position, it could grow. Next. So we had lunch and in younger days with each other to talk in a role as a Minister of Culture to bring it one step further. Next. And inventing at that moment how to transform mud into parks. Next. How to paint social housing into direction. Next. And I was asked to help. Next. So what can I do with this? So my first project was this, to give to every house a color. What would you like to show? So next, this was made at that moment to celebrate a little bit as emerging participation. Next. So what then can you do? Next. This is about failures and beauty, and we were asked to make this shopping hall, a market hall, and with B25 concrete, I cannot make big structures. 2 meters is the maximum of cantilever that I could do. And you have a hall. Next. So and you can step up and go through these arches. Next. Beautiful arches cladded with recycled glass that I found outside. Next. But the truth was different. When I came back 2 years later, there was hanging this sign. They're building in a way without us. Next. So they changed this a little bit. The stairs are gone. The interiors is broken up. Next. And lead to something which I didn't imagine in a way. That's also part of the game. So we learned from that. I said, no, this is not going to happen. A prize for the best client, yes, very good idea, Anneke. But that's also the best builder needs also be on board. Next. So what's next then in this enterprise? Next time we do it differently. Next. So another role, a mayor came into position and tried to design the city. Next. So what can you do then? Next. And so we painted this housing as like a stack of houses on top of each other that form each a community and in a totality the map of Albania. Next. So it was this living together what was celebrated. The client comes in and said, this is too much. We cannot shake this. Maybe now you can make it. But I had to bring it back next to what you have seen now next. Here on the horizon. Much more rational. But next. Giving hopefully a space where you could meet and where you can form next some kind of togetherness between the people that can bring the wine to the neighbor next. So how would that then bring further? It was so happy to see next. I mean, it takes already 4 years to build it, and why so long? And then use it in Christmas. So go further with it was a question. We witnessed this. And I still want to explain to the students and to the developers what have happened with a dangerous building. Should we break it down? Should we celebrate the past by restoring? And in the parliament, it was decided to live with it next. So how can we go over it? How can we access it? How can we facilitate schools in it next to become a kind of open structure that not the past, it overcomes the past. So now it's there, next. And with a certain pride, we can celebrate at certain moments togetherness in that inside and outside. Next, 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 next. And squatted by this program. And then next, celebrating the park that is surrounding it. A continuation of the forest that was done by my Belgian colleagues so beautifully on the center side. Next. So it has acknowledged. So 20 years, you can do things. Next. And you get reactions. But what can we do now? The funny thing is that at the same moment that you do these buildings, some people talk about Europe. And I love Europe. I love the variety of Europe. Next. And how can we contribute? So when I made this at the moment in lecture somewhere in London, to say next, that UK is out now, Albania is in, costed me hundreds of commissions in the UK. They hated me for that. So I sacrificed part of my career because of you. Is that or that? Next. So what do we do then? You organize summits and you use a certain background. Next. Which was beautiful to see everybody sharing such a kind of openness. Next. And then to be part of this discussion, I think as an architect, urbanist, I would think, how to do that? How can we contribute to Europe? And even the ones that are not part of it can maybe come in. Next. So what can we do then as a next step? Final, for next. Next. Because next. More things are happening. A new map is appearing. And we made this as a contribution to the past. And it is just open since 2 weeks. Also comes things together. Next. So which was like normal building. And next you start to break it down, the scaffolding, in this 3 months' time. So this is another way of opening. Next. And then celebrate it here with the Giro is a kind of like, okay, the background is helping to think about the past. Next. Next. So not everybody likes it, I know. Because courage is always going with discussion. Sometimes we are not here to please everybody. We are here to find our ways. So you can say it as a mistake or say it as, wow, this is a contribution of an identity within Europe. And Europe is about that. That I am different in Netherlands than you in Italy. And that I love that. And when I love it, I go there. And that is what Saskia Sassa said. This kind of interdependency is what we have to create. So what can be done next? With this catalog, this beautiful collection, which don't need an urban plan initially. You have to make a building and the other one refers to it. Oh, I have to make something more beautiful. That's exactly why we are here. To don't copy, but to be somehow original and to be the adventure of invention. This is celebrating. And making this beautiful plaza, indeed, Anneke, surrounding with a new density. Next. So what is then the true next? Now this has happened in the last time. Now, and then these dreams come as the only slogan that, Eddie, that you use at this very moment. That is deepened today by your long speech. And how to add that to your agenda is what this Albania 2.1 is now celebrating. What are we going to add with each other after having realized the 2.0 version? Next. So I can imagine that your starting of this enterprise called Tirana is important. Don't stop densifying it, because the sprawl that is stretching now already from here to Italy is something that we have to beat next. So to find places inside this collection is what the next step can be. And that means that we try to find a rock the coming times with each other to add this adventure. We try to imagine that we made maybe the Skender, but yes, behind it, I can do maybe a piece that celebrates then this buste and finds the niches of our time together. And what that happens is that this gradually next could become something like that in this corner. Let's go on, next. But it's not only there. This means that we have to ask our developers to pay something. So yes, 2 metro lines, please, to do that in the 2.1 version. And that means north-south, east-west, to do that. And then let's not forget the coast. When I was asked to make an hotel, that block there, I thought you cannot do that. And we have to lift it on top of the gorge in order to keep it free. So your treatment of the coast deserves a majority of nature and an incredible careful impact on that. Your love for your national parks would be beautiful. Don't transform death into the next, say, tourist trap, is what I would do. And make like a plan, an architecture of your agriculture. You have a treasure here of water. Make the lines of bushes in between so that Tuscany is going to here instead of you going to Tuscany. And then I can imagine this kind of dreams coming up in your landscapes. You have to, I imagine, Eddie, that the water system here is so careful that already the buildings can help, that your cellars can store it in your next enterprises in your urban plan, and then build your city on top of it. I can imagine that you give it a flood of solar energy over this country so that the appearance of Tirana is completely different. And what's then next? Maybe then it's time also to think about this high-speed link to the world. And maybe to end with, I hope that also this is a moment to start the new education. Now it's not only foreigners that work it. And like some of you already said, it's the new generation. Make your school here and turn it into the better Harvard. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Floor is yours.
Yeah, just maybe 9 images. Maybe we can start with the first one. So I believe that what makes Albania in a way so unique is that it's maybe this is not the first. You have to go back. Yes, this is the first. So it's a palimpsest. It's an amazing palimpsest of different fragments of time. So time here it has different direction, and you can find landscapes and let's say ruins, contemporary Dutch architecture and medieval walls and Roman forum maybe in the same area. So this rhapsody, you know, is a musical composition put together old, let's say, tradition and new composition. It's something that you can see in Tirana and you can see everywhere. So also I think it's quite interesting that Tirana is not, as it happens for many European capital, an environment which is in a kind of way opposed to its countryside, also from a political point of view, same to what is happening in Paris or London or let's say Roma, Milano against the Veneto or other reason. No, Tirana is embodying the DNA of Albania. Albania is representing like a large-scale kaleidoscopic environment. So that's the reason we have called our plan for Tirana a plan for a kaleidoscopic city. This is something that we have never to forget. Next. But I'd love to switch from architecture to environment. And it's also a moment to remember a very, very, very strong friend and an amazing visionary, Richard Weller, who invented this idea of a world park. And I'd love simply to let's say, to a little bit consider that one of the huge paths that are biological and ecological corridors that they are connecting all the hotspots of biodiversity that Richard was, let's say, proposing is crossing South Europe, Spain, France, Italy, and it lands in Albania, which is considered one of the major hotspots of biodiversity. So from that point of view, next, I think that we have for sure to respect the past and to have a very, let's say, regenerative attitude in a relation with the past. This is the amazing amphitheater Romano in Dures. But next, I believe that maybe we jumped one about the cost. Don't know. Go back, please. Go back. Go back. Go back. Well, it's lost. I don't know why. But I think that we have, I think that Anneke was very right. We have to do something to, let's say, protect the Albanian coast. I know that this is a serious issue, but I have a very simple example or model or reference, which is what Sardinia did 15 years ago with Renato Soro, that Eddie knows. And the Sardinian law was very simple. Nothing new can be built in the coastal strip 300 meters wide, starting from the coastline. That's all. But if we want to do that, because these coasts are a patrimony, it's not ours, it's owned by our children and grandchildren, and it's an amazing environmental and economical patrimony. If we want to do that, we cannot simply ask politicians or, let's say, the government to do that. We have to be aware of our role as architects, so to be capable to say no to the pressure of a real estate market. When we are asked to do something of new in the Albanian coast, which is still a miracle compared to what's happened in other parts of Europe. And from that point of view, I think what Rama has taught us to do is that to consider Europe as a kind of of older brother who has done a lot of mistakes, because we have done a lot of mistakes. In Spain, in France, in Italy, we have destroyed the coast, completely destroyed the coast. So if we want to be serious, we have to learn from the mistakes of our older brothers here and to say, well, let's save this amazing environmental patrimony. Okay, just a few other things about the next challenge that will be shade. Shade is, please go back. Okay, this is what we have done in Riyadh, but I think it's something that we have to consider with attention also in the South Europe and the Mediterranean coast. So shade and water will become the resources of the future. We have really to work in order to understand how we can manage these precious elements. And from another point of view, I think we cannot let's avoid to consider how inequality is growing in our cities and how we should, I believe, promote not only in Southern Europe but in Albania too, a large campaign for, let's say, multiplicating all the social housing settlements, and this is also involving private interest. And I think from that point of view, Iñaki Canicero, which is somewhere here, what he is doing with Pedro Sanchez in Spain is super interesting and could be repeated here. Last thing was about schools. I think that schools are, let's say, the core, the heart of our countries. Public school, professional school are where the transmission of knowledge and, let's say, the capacity of make the work at the center of any attention is embodied. And I think we have to do our best to multiplicate public school networks in Albania and in all Southern Europe. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much to both of you. I think this second block of this day is also about looking back how the architecture culture emerged here in Albania and in Tirana specifically, and how it's also changing over time until the point where we are now. And I was also wondering, both of you were also here quite at the beginning, I would say, of this new wave. Could you maybe briefly also reflect on how you what did you find here when you got here, and how did you experience this transformation of this architecture culture here?
Arriving 25 years ago, it was a relief because of the energy and the action to do. And it's almost like a mirror for indeed the blockage that's especially in Germany and in the Netherlands, on our architectural systems, our production systems. It was the second element, which was super important, that it was trying to find solutions for better and for worse. So it made sense to participate. An issue which you not have in many countries, that things that you do make sense. So there is because then you are blocked by all the laws into a kind of endless mediocrity. But we say that it's quality. So there's but 99% is the same. Blocks from north of Finland up to the south of Italy are now governing our urbanisms. There's no space for invention almost, and that's what here was the culture that was needed. Yeah, then it's from there on. It's a process that because it's a culture of curiosity. So that means, how does it evolve? It is, I already said, don't copy and try to enlarge. It is an incredible challenge for everybody to invent and to make sincere extra interventions on it, and to invent the agenda. That has become stronger now, so many people are here on board. And that puts, to evaluate this policy, okay, now we get into the next step. Are we bringing it to kind of moderate rules and temper that culture, or can we facilitate it on the way? And so from, say, an emerging country to then again a sleeping beauty, that can happen over time.
How was that for you, Stefano?
I just say that I am one of the witnesses of this amazing acceleration that Tirana and Albania, let's say, demonstrate in the last 20 years. And well, I think it's really unique from a certain point of view. Well, I believe that it's really important to learn from the mistakes of Europe. I repeat this point, which is for me is very important. So accelerating doesn't mean not observe with attention the disaster done, but other countries or other towns will have done the same processes in a longer period. No? And that's for me is how to learn from history, not in a nostalgic way, but making history generative. This is all for me. Yes.
So what do we then need to take from, let's say, architecture culture in Italy or in France, and what we
also
need to bring?
Politics, not only architecture. It's not only about architecture. What I'm saying about the cost, what I'm saying about the abandonment of the historical villages. It's something that we should avoid here. We can avoid it, and I think this could make Tirana and Albania really, let's say, a unique reference for the entire planet. Because if you see the Mediterranean environment, Albania is still, let's say, an exception from many points of view.
Yeah, thank you. What would you suggest?
No, you can also, I would like to add one thing, because I agree with Stefano on this, but you can also learn from yourself when you compare. Honestly, your agricultural landscapes are not the most beautiful in the world. They're like, let's be fair.
But agriculture is not nature. So that's also another side. I don't agree with you on that. So agriculture is a part of what is around us, but is not nature. So we have to protect the natural environment and the coastal environment without introducing necessary cultivation. That's another point. I'm totally for cultivation, but this is it has to be very discreet.
Yeah, but if we're
Tuscany is a fake nature. It's completely fake. We can like it on the landscape, on a painting, but nature is not there. We should be clear on that. Nature is no longer there.
Yeah, but if we then want to transform these landscapes into the future while also preserving it and make sure it's not going to be fake, how do we do that in terms of, like, from our profession, so to say? So how do we, like, beyond, let's say, the bold interventions, what kind of architecture do we need to transform this landscape in a way?
I think we have to learn from our failures, to talk about our failures, to do a school of failures and flops. But it's normally we came here and we do, like, let's say, an elegy of our success, but it's not true. Every one of us has done a lot of flops, and here and in other parts of the world has experienced failures. So from that, just a moment, and that's the first step. So to learn from failures and forget the second step. Go on.
I'm sorry, because I wanted to react for a moment on your word boldness. There's so for some of the audience, this might be a wrong message. I think you have ugly boldness and beautiful boldness. Beautiful boldness helps in a way to put emphasis on certain elements that you would like to encourage. That can be also like an incredible bold, say, protection of a piece of nature, which is also a bold one, or a bolder intervention with trees in an agriculture combine. So I wanted to nuance your suggestion
on boldness. Yeah.
And to be capable to say no. That's so difficult. So
learn to say no.
To say no to the pressure of our real estate market, which is very difficult. Let's say I know.
But maybe that's something we can practice together.
But we should learn to say no. Yeah. And it's not about the politician, it's really about us.
Fantastic. Maybe to close off, I think it's very interesting you both mentioned education as a very important point. Could you maybe, in just a few words, sketch what would be a future of architecture and education look like in Albania? What would you suggest?
Well, to realize a network of public schools, let's say open 24 hours a day, 365 a day in a year for all the ages, where that could become also a place for let's say, makers, art crafters, so a place for a professional transmission of knowledge.
What about you?
I think your school here can help your country to say what you want, and it should research things, hypotheses that are maybe needed to make decisions for your governments to decide about directions. You can test with your young generation how this country can look like, and that is a kind of a contemporary form of research and a contemporary way of, say, explicitizing and showing it. So a school is education, but it's also making, and it's also thinking about that future and advocating through that research what it can be. And that should be like a vehicle for for our new generation to speak out and to formulate what they can do.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, both of you. We continue with the short inputs.
Thank you, Stefano and Winy, for feeding into this growing wave of conversations. And they'll be around, so don't hesitate to walk up to them and continue that conversation with them. Now it's the second round of short inputs. I would like to invite into the arena Johan, Anrys, Elora Hardy, Christian, I don't know where you are, Kerez, yeah, please join us here. And Beat Huesler, you're also here. Yeah, there you are. Yeah, give them an applause. Yeah. Yeah, it's the same recipe. You all have 4 or 5 minutes to give a short input. Hopefully we'll have some time also to start more of a conversation between you. I want to start with Johan. I think you've already been introduced. You're founding partner at 51N4E with Freek Persyn, who was here at the beginning. You have been active here in Tirana in Albania for 20 years or more even. You're one of the designers of this building, of the square, of the building next door. Really curious what you have to say about your encounters and engagements here with Albania.
Yeah, it's true. This year it's the celebration of 20 years exactly. When I came here, I was 30. I was a bit in the situation like Chris, so I did not have the burden of a huge portfolio and come here. So I was kind of, I mean, until today, I'm very thankful to the trust that was granted to a young architect. We had a few projects by that time, and it has been really an enormous journey. We did so many projects, of which only a few got built. So you could call them many mistakes, many tests. So I learned a lot. I think when you do a project as an architect, I learned that I could not trust the project. The project, the sketch, or the competition was only a sketch, an intuition. And you put it on the table, and then a whole dialogue starts, and a negotiation starts. And I have learned more to trust in this intuition, and to trust on your own capacities as an architect can inspire, an architect can imagine things, not only for yourself, but can help the imagination of others. We are also good listeners to integrate what has been at stake, what are the questions at the table. And gradually you build a project. So what is being built, this building, the square, the tower, are not my projects. They are results of the capacity of what the society can and is able to do. So, but of course, as an architect, you put forward some starting lines, some ideas, some goals, some dreams that you can share, and along the way, you develop them. So one of the intentions of the tower that we see here was really, I wanted to make it here. I didn't want to import the materials like the other tower that was there, the Kulabinyaki, was a kind of facade imported from Turkey. I wanted to use architecture as a process to discover what we are able to do economically, technically. And I think this was, in all of the projects, one of the important things, to resource capacities. The square is 100% built with local material. And what you see here, can you go back to the next, yes, what you see here, I think one of the most amazing battles or dialogues has been the relationship between public and private. This has been, and that's where I'm shared the touch while Freek was touched and how Eddie explained it. It's really about the common. I think in architecture we can reveal how we live together. And the building at that moment represents that. So if we do not take the chance to do that, the building will tell us, it shows, it's a proof how we live, it represents our life, it echoes. And so I'm so keen on always trying to find solutions how the private and the public live together. For example, in this project here, you see the master plan drew the building over a monument that was there. And there was a conflict in the master plan. So we tried how the private building all of a sudden creates a public moment in very simple things. The next slide shows another thing. It's the building where we are here. This building, it was an enormous fight. So we are sitting here in an open room, and it's air, it's a public space. It has to be intended in a public space. But the whole process, in order to get it like that, you cannot imagine. It's a dialogue we have. We as architects, we have like a very rare position between, we have a neutral position between the public and the private. We are some sort in between. We can play with it. We can create the public and the private life together. How this building, for example, is really taking the public space in itself. For me, it represents how people here live abroad, live together. There is much less private attention to private life, but more to public life. And this is very beautiful. Where I come from, it's a challenge. And this I found here, and it has to be celebrated. And buildings can do that. I think next slide shows you can do it in big buildings, but also in very small moments. Oh, it was the last one?
Johan, we're approaching 5 minutes. So is there a final point you'd like to make?
No, not now. Maybe I'll listen and then we can make time.
Thank you, Johan. Can you hear me? Yeah. Next is Elora Hardy. She is the founder of Ibuku, based in Bali and focused on bamboo architecture. So we're wondering what your short input is today.
Some months ago, I got a call from Eddie, the Prime Minister, asking me to come and fall in love with a country. That's what he said. And when I visited, I was alone here for some days, and I was feeling in to understand what the culture needs, what the place needs. And what I felt was, I felt confronted actually with the recent history. I didn't see it. I saw lots of vibrant energy, but I felt this underlying tension that made it really uncomfortable to be alone in the city for some days. I felt the responsibility to embody that, to feel what was there. And fortunately, my site is on the coast. So I got to go out to Dermi and experience the landscape there and feel that. There is a windswept, rugged beauty there. A resilience where even the stones, when they're tumbled by the sea, turn into these soft pebbles, and even when they're compressed to become the local marble, they're each individual showing. And under that tension and pressure, I also saw beauty. On the historic hillsides of Dermi and Gjirokastra, I felt relief and charm. But also underlying there, I saw this sense of being perhaps huddled and defensive, or perhaps snuggled and communal, or maybe different things at different times throughout history. But those buildings have remained, and they are part of the context. And I wanted to learn from them. Now what I see is a sense of openness, and enthusiasm, and eagerness for change, and a pivotal responsibility now of what that change will be. Underlying it all, there's hospitality, as is the theme of the conference, this welcoming sense of community and inclusivity. That's a powerful driver, and the project that I'm doing is a hotel. So that factors in very closely. From the early concept stage, we realized that each room wanted to snuggle together so they can connect with the sea. That was the pressure there, not to defend, but to connect, to reunite with nature. And I come from Bali, which has been said that it has been overbuilt for almost a century now. It's been ruined for almost a century, and yet still it's a magnet for people with their agendas and their visions. And there is no real order there. There is no building code, so that's freeing and fun, but there is also no control, no intention, no direction. People just come and make what they wish there. And so what I ask is that we listen, especially when we come from another place, and especially when we go onto any piece of land that is not ours, because no land is really ours, that we listen for what it wants to become, as we did at the very beginning of this day. To ask the land, to ask the materials, to ask nature what it is to value the green heart of things, to find the life if we believe in life. We should build around the green and hold it and support it and retain it. In this irrepressible tradition of hospitality that I see both in Bali and in Albania, there's this era of openness happening. And so when we're asked to bring the salt, what really is salt? It's a catalyst. It's not a flavor, it's not a thing, it's a catalyst. It heightens our perception of what is really there. It helps each flavor taste more like itself. Salt preserves, salt reveals, and salt connects. So yes, Albania needs salt.
Thank you for those beautiful reflections. Christian Kerez, joining us from Zurich, where you have your own office. You were also professor at ETH. You've been building in different parts of the world. Maybe most recently you did this amazing sculptural car park in Bahrain that many of us, I think, have seen. But you're also active here in Albania, and curious to hear your story.
Yeah, it's difficult to say something now that so much is already said. Maybe I start somewhere in a different place, right? The last time I met most of you, or many of you, was the Venice Biennale. And Venice Biennale is, let's say, the most famous architectural event there is, but it becomes much more and more like a dream world apart from reality. And I must say, it feels very good to be here on the construction site where the debate, the thoughts of architecture are really linked to what is happening just here and now outside of this building above us. And this is, makes this event really unique and also different to all other architectural events that we know so far. I'm a total beginner in the sense I just started to work here half a year, and the first thing I actually had the opportunity to do was to participate in a jury for a architectural competition of public buildings. And this jury was in an auditorium like this, filled with students, developers. There were a crowd of 100 people in this auditorium. The jury was totally public. It was even on TV simultaneously. To have this, let's say, transparency, what is going on, what is happening right now, is totally unique. And in this sense, from a point of view of an architect, I wish that Europe would become Albanian before Albania enters Europe. There are some mistakes I did, right? Maybe if you switch to the next. So this was the entry, idea of a building. We had a phone call with the developer next. And then we had a presentation with the developer. He told us on the phone that we should do a building for 4.2. So we thought it's 4,200 square meters, but in fact it's 42,000. As you can see here. But he was quite relaxed when he saw that I get stressed and said, don't worry, the difference is only a zero. And maybe you see that this building now relates much more to the building in front of it. But if you switch to this next slide, it is from outside a terraced house with private terraces next. And then in the inside, this picture you have to imagine, that's much better that it is not here. There is a huge public square with trees in a cathedral-like space, so the buildings do not create a leftover in the city, but they create an urban space outside the city center that is eventually even stronger than as you can find it in the city center. Next. This is, let's say, an attempt to relate to this informal settlement, this hybrid quality of the city. Next. Okay. And perfect. So you have to imagine, you know, what is it about? High-rise buildings, very often, they work from far away, you know, when you see them in the silhouette. But if you go close to them, it feels a bit like watching a Hollywood movie in the first row. It's like a distorted perspective. And we hoped with this high-rise to do something that you can walk around in very close proximity, and it always changes, so that it will be really for the people that are neighbors of this house also be something that is enjoyable. So this aspect, let's say, that you have no codes, that you have no precise guidelines what to do, but you have somebody that makes a judgment, and this judgment is not purely personal, but it's also political, and it's also a judgment. Is this a contribution to the city? Is this a contribution to the community? Is something that makes a huge difference to most other countries where we work.
Thank you.
All right, then I would like to introduce Beat Huesler. He is the European Director for Oppenheim Architecture. They've realized several projects already in Albania, from a hotel to a museum, to which also the red towers over here refer, and currently also working on a tower. Please, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you. It's not quite correct. We have not realized. What we have realized stands out there. But we're in the process too. So before we touched ground the first time in Albania, we watched some documentary. And I remember there was one documentary, a Swiss documentary, and it was, they interviewed a taxi driver. And he said, the most impatient people in the world are the Albanians. And at that point, it made me more laugh than now, after the 5-6 years we're here, now I know what he means. Time is so important in this country, and time does so much affect our architecture in this country. And that we all here, kind of steady, not moving, is really, really a nice moment for me too, after running for 5-6 years, to have the moment. And I hope this is not just a kickoff, this is actually also a part of a pause, that we have time to reflect. And time, it has been said before from Stefano, it's time to learn. You need space to learn. So in our projects, and I learned I have to say next, and then it's okay. In our projects, we like to learn from the land. We like to learn from the people. We like to learn from the nature and the sounds. But if there's no time to learn, how do you bring that into your architecture? So we have projects we actually didn't start at the city, we started at the south. We came up and ended up in an urban context. So we had a little bit more time 5-6 years ago to do these projects, but lately in the last 6 to 12 months, time got shorter. But if I like to reflect how we would like to approach architecture, it's so much that time offers for us in the process. And I would say we have to accept the timely matters of the countries, but we should trust in the process of us as architects. In the projects we achieve, and maybe the Pigem Museum model out there is a good example, where we are trying to create a space to gather where we hopefully, and these models or this mock-up, this space will travel throughout Albania to gather stories for Beza, that there are moments, there's this Oda, this living room, outdoor living room, that brings Albanian people together with us to gather stories. Because we have to have the time to listen to Albania, to maybe at the end, not just designing an international style architecture and that arrives in Albania. We are very interested in defining or trying to find an Albanian architecture, like something that can only happen in Albania with its pride, with its textures and layers. And that's what we're trying to do the last 5-6 years, finding this very unique Albanian moments in architecture and in space. And I hope we have more time to do that in the future, because we also told we have to look back a little bit. Time is very, very an important factor working here. I'm not saying that as a Swiss, because in Switzerland we have too much time. So I'm actually appreciating having a certain pressure. But how it influences architecture, and so it becomes and stays Albanian, is very important for us. And we'd like to create this kind of timeless, modern, contemporary pieces that are the symbiote between it's been here, but being very, very unique of the place. Thank you.
Thank you. So considering time, we're running out of time, but I would like to get back to your first remark around you seeing architecture as a way to show and stretch and enlarge the capacity of this country. And you, as someone who has been active here for 20 years, sitting with some newcomers here, could you maybe reflect on when is there enough capacity, for example, in your case, to maybe hand it over more to a new generation of Albanian architects or for newcomers like them?
I do have a question related to what you said about that the common life is a political choice. I think it's very interesting. Also something that Stephen, you mentioned, urbanism working with doubt, you said. It struck me in a way, and I think this is a common question. From where I come from, our common life is organized in urban plans. And urban plans are most of the time quantitative way. You can have here a road, this is the volume, that's the distance. So what we share, what we have together is quantified and often fixed. And then we as architects come and we can design, improve, maybe challenge. What I notice here is that relationship between our shared space, our urban space, and our architecture is much more fluent. And there is a reluctancy to fix it. And I appreciate that, I value that, because that's a struggle I have, that things are fixed and there is not anymore the chance with the process of architecture to question that and to have opportunities. Because once you fix, it's almost made not to interrupt each other, to be safe, I'm not going to damage you, which is a value, but at the same time it takes out the possibility of growing, of opportunity, and with that comes a responsibility. And my true question is indeed, what we value here, how can we see that as a durable process, not something that is just happening in this moment, with this coming and encounter of people, but how I have a hard time how to imagine this could be a sustainable way how human beings live together and find themselves to organize themselves. And that is something that I would really put to everybody here, that when we do architecture with so much different views, which is really amazing. I have discussions with Mini many times, but only here I work with him. Only here we fight, we come to solutions. We disagree, and that is really truly exceptional. And can this be something that is a contribution to Europe, where we plan and fix things, but we take out freedoms in the same moment? How to solve that, I don't know. But I sense and I believe and I trust also what Eddie said in the beginning. There is a solution and there is an opportunity to learn in this path. So if you want me what to pass on, I think this is what in this experience I would pass on as a question for us to discuss today, tomorrow, and in the coming years.
Thank you for that, yeah. I want to thank all four of you. We're going to be checking in again with Amona, who is somewhere out there with her camera. I hope we can bring her on screen again. Let's see what happens. For a quick Vox Pop, to hear from a younger generation of Albanians. If that doesn't work, we're going to just move on to the panel, and maybe we'll get back to Imona later.
Now?
Yes, so now we have arrived at the first panel in which we invite... Oh, it's...
Hello, can you hear me?
We can hear you. Please go ahead, Imona.
Fantastic, okay. Well, sorry to hide and seek, but actually the atmosphere here outside is quite mesmerizing. There is plenty of events going on. There is plenty of pavilions being displayed around Skanderbeg Square. There is actually a beautiful kiosk here of young Albanian architects, which is pretty phenomenal. I advise everyone to visit whenever you get a chance. But also there is plenty of traditional food being served around. So when you get a chance, try to go around a little bit around the building and have a look at the beautiful models and pavilions exhibited all across. It's also a very nice experience to meet old and young collaborators, some famous architects, but also younger architects that bring a new energy and vibe to this festival. At the moment, I'm actually here with Dardan. Dardan Vukaj is an Albanian architect, and he's been involved quite deeply with quite complex projects. In fact, he's been in the design practice for a long time now, and I'd really like to get an impression from him on what has been your experience to work in Albania, and how this design process has evolved for you since the early days of your engagement up to today.
First, thank you for this amazing organization. It's very nice to see this festival in Albania with all these big names. Not only speaking here, but they are doing a lot of new buildings, landmark, and putting their mark in Albania. It's very nice to see this. As an architect, I started my career 10 years ago, and I can say in the starting was a bit a chaos in Albania, more like a lot of energy, but not a clear vision of what we need to do, what we want to do, and how we need to do it. During the years, I've seen that we have started to shape how we want to do things and where is our goal to go. And I can say doing urban plannings, doing competition, involving even international architects.
So the hide and seek continues for a little bit. We'll get back to her in a minute, but we continue with the panel.
For sure. I would like to invite Benedetta Tagliabue, Sam Chermayeff, Xavier de Geiter, José Selgas, and Sonila Abdali. Benedetta is the co-founder of EMBT and working on several things in Albania, amongst which the new parliamentary complex. Sam is the founder of the Berlin-based June 14 Maya Grobrugge and Sam Chermayeff office. And he's famous for his radical furniture design and now having a few actual architecture projects underway in Albania. Xavier de Geiter is from the Brussels-based ex-DGA with multiple projects underway in Albania, like the Puppet Theatre, the National Library, and the Flora Marina. Jose Selgas, co-founder of Selgas Cano with Lucia Cano, known for their signature use of color. And among their latest projects is the tantalizing Rosafa Hotel Tower in Shkodra. Sonila Abdali is the co-founder and CEO of the Steel Creative Hub, which is a cultural venue for dialogue and coming together. And they've also been involved with radical preservation for over a decade already.
And so, Nila, we would love to start with you. As a local rooted in Tirana, we wanted to ask you, as we were focusing in a session about first impressions of working with and within Albania, but for you, we would like to reverse the question. What were your first impressions when international architecture firms started to work in Albania? And maybe also, how did this view change over time?
So, if you allowed me, I would like to read something that I prepared to share. First, it's a pleasure to be here to share this space with such remarkable voices in architecture and design. I have a big responsibility today bringing younger voices and local voices. I'm a cultural manager and an entrepreneur. And perhaps more than anything, I'm a community builder. In 2014, I co-founded The Steel, a space born from the desire to activate places through people, dialogue, collaboration, and creative forces that live and breathe in this city. The first slide was our initial home. Our journey began in a forgotten Italian villa in the neighborhood where I grew up, very close to the Artistic Lyceum of Tirana. We drew on the dust and the ruins a space where we young architects, creatives could come together to work, meet and exchange ideas. We didn't just restore its walls. Through art, design, architecture and social encounters, we transform it into a cultural incubator. Many generations of architecture students wrote their diploma thesis in our co-working space. Shkodra Elektronika, who later represented us to Eurovision, had their first performance on our stage. Many designers and visual artists has held their first exhibition in our space. Readers, travelers, and what we called later digital nomads would sit for hours in our garden or stay overnight in our hostel. We built a home together. In 2019, as we grow, and as the city itself began to grow, we had to leave the villa and find a new space for our evolving initiatives. And since then, we've been based in a building with a rich history, located in an important intersection on the main boulevard that connects the old Tirana with what the new Tirana will be, a boulevard that awaits its city to rise around it. The 6th-level building housed the headquarters of The Voice of the People, a newspaper during communism time. Today, it's a cultural hub, a home to a vibrant bar, a co-working and production space, and a gallery. From the outside, it might seem like just another intervention, but for us, every layer is deeply rooted in the community. Artist, designer, musician, historian, researcher, all working side by side. This journey has led us to develop several initiatives focused on creative industry and the promotion of contemporary Albanian design. In November, we launched Space 5. We can go to the next slide. A designer concept store inside the revitalized Pyramid of Tirana. It features 9 permanent Albanian designers and combines retail with culture through our box program. The only black box in the pyramid, where the real magic happens. The box is home to talks, pop-ups, and collaborative projects that connect emerging Albanian designers with international names. Local production, especially in fashion and design, is one of our main focuses. But to move forward, also we need to understand our past. Albania had a remarkable level of industrial production during communism, something we believe deserves to be re-examined, documented, and shared. That's why I'm excited to introduce another project we're working on, the Made in Albanian Museum. And here we can see some renders done by architect Tea Mersule. Our goal is to create a network of small museums across the country that tell the story of Albanian production from craftsmanship to industrial design. With this initiative, we're not just interested in building and restoring beautiful architecture. We aim to create new cultural centers, build strong communities, and contribute to public education and cultural awareness. We believe that while beautiful new buildings attract people, what makes them stay, what generates value and meaning are the stories, rituals, daily uses, and people who inhabit these spaces. That's why I strongly believe that architecture does not end with the final layer of concrete or the last steel beam. In fact, for me, that's when the real project begins. Thank you very much for having me and for listening to this small presentation.
Thank you, Sunila. Maybe to Benedetta, maybe you could reflect on this general question for this round. So what has been your experience in Albania so far, getting to know the culture, the building culture, and also having seen things evolve?
So thank you. I'm very happy to be here. I think it's an incredible situation, and the speech from Rama before was very touching. I don't know, I prepared absolutely nothing. So I think in a way I was starting in architecture, our studio, with a fantastic person who was my partner in life and work, and we stayed together only 10 years, but they were so important. His name was Rick Miralles, and he died in year 2000. And from that moment on, I started to question myself. I have to be an architect. I wanted to go on because I wanted to finish the work we started together. And from that moment on, I started to become an architect, which is always questioning herself about, is it right to do what I do? Why do I have such a difficult life? Is it really worthwhile? And I think this is very important, to find people who is giving you reasons to go on with this profession and to understand it deeply and to understand that it has more meaning than only the day-to-day going on with an office and finding projects and building things. So I think in my life without a Rick, I had 3 moments maybe where I discovered the real meaning and importance of architecture. One, I was in the Pritzker jury and I seated next to a person, and we were in a bus in a traffic. And this person was Ratan Tata, and he was starting to talk because we had nothing to do in that moment. And he was explaining me that the society of India was very complicated. He was really feeling that this society could explode in every moment. And he had very clearly this consciousness. But he was believing that architecture and public spaces and good quality architecture could do so much to keep society in a sort of peace. And that's why he was in the Pritzker jury. And I think this was really important to me, because this was giving to me this idea, really, maybe I should understand how architecture can influence society, and really deeply. So another one of the things that made me understand how architecture is really influential, really important, it was working on a Magis center in Spain, which that's why it's not called Magi, it's called Calida. But it is a fantastic program, because it's a program which is just telling people, okay, we try to give a good quality architecture with a garden to make people who is ill with cancer feel better. And this is incredible because you understand, wow, architecture, good quality architecture, had the capacity to heal somehow. I don't know, I don't think there is a formula, but this is a possibility. And everybody among the architects here who have been working in a Maggie Center knows that. And I think this has to be extended. And the third moment when I really had a very strong feeling about how important this profession can be is when I met Rama. And really what he's doing here in Albania is making a real transformation. So really with the consciousness that architecture can be a healing point for a nation and can be much, much more. Really a kind of a spiritual path, something which is teaching in every moment, something which is never a formula. Because when I work here with Rama at the end, always looking at what you're doing, I always feel it's not enough. I never made enough for the projects we have here in Albania. There's always more possibility. There is always more craziness or more something hidden that you have to go and find. And this is what I feel, no? In a way, I participated here in 3 competitions with recently with organized by Ada, Delina, and Rama, and everybody. But also I participated in 2 competitions before, in 2007 and 2010. I lost all of them. So maybe the feeling is, yes, I have to learn much more every time. And maybe what we have to learn is to try to make our best every time we have a project in our hands and try to remember that the things we do have a very great power on everybody who is using it and will use it in the future.
Thank you.
So we would like to ask the same question to Sam.
Does everybody know how it works? Somehow you arrive here and Eddie assigns you a client or / Eddie assigns a client to you. It's very unclear in the beginning. You get here, he said, smell the mountains, pause, half you, half the mountains. And that's clear, but then he says like, and then you have to go talk to these guys because they want to do something and it's okay. And so it's quick and it's exciting, and then you arrive. And you talked earlier about coincidence, and you don't believe in that, and I thought it was a coincidence. But it turns out my clients are like the greatest people, my Albanians, and they look like gangsters. So they're not here, they'll come later. You know, they drive a big Mercedes. I said, I also drive a big Mercedes, and we were all like, okay, so like, now I wear a gold chain, they wear gold chains. Like we're like, I'm growing to them, they're growing to me. And then we immediately apologize mutually because neither of us have any business making a 45-story building in the middle of any city. So that's what Albania becomes about. It's like, and they're sort of sorry, like they're not 100% sure how to do that, and I'm also not 100% sure how to do that, right? Because 45 stories is a tall building. And as aforementioned, I mean, I do make buildings, but I make a lot of furniture, which is not indeed that. And so somehow Eddie chose, I don't know, I have no idea how much you thought about, you looked at them and you looked at me and said like, these people will get along. I mean, I don't believe that you really did that. It was just something more than coincidence, some kind of magic. And so now these guys do the next project with the next other guys who also look like gangsters, and they all get along. And now the next guy, like the brother-in-law, build the facade, which is outside. And now the son of the brother-in-law, who I can't track that relation anymore, is going to come for an internship in our office. And then those same guys did a competition submission with Paolo, who's just smiling in front of me. And so it is a lot like Kadare here. Like, it really is like a family thing. And I didn't make them come specifically to this particular moment because I didn't want to embarrass them because they think that they're shyer than this. But somehow that relation explains everything and grows constantly, and that makes it incredibly fun to work here and incredibly kind of strong. And then another guy made chairs, which are also outside, which are very beautiful, which are perfect from our design, and now we're going to send them to a restaurant in Vienna. So somehow we make it like a whole world here happens from a coincidence that's apparently not a coincidence.
Sam, can I just, I read an interview with you in Apartamento, and I think it was mainly about furniture, the interview, but I think you said something like, what I make works everywhere, right? So I'm curious how you feel about this idea of, let's say, universalism versus identity.
I mean, I do like to think that, although the fight with modernism is ongoing, and I think modernism for me is losing a little bit more every day. And in Albania, you don't fight for modernism somehow, right? You don't, in modernism, I mean like Mies, it's not like you have to go somewhere else. And so actually here becomes another story, and you have to read those guys. And those guys then proceeded to ask for really weird things, right? Like the restaurant has to be in the middle, and the hotel has to be here, and then there's this kind of housing, and then this kind of housing, and so the building a building reflects this kind of request that is on the one hand universal, but also very particular to their particular madness, which I love. So, both. Yeah.
Xavier, you've been around for a while now in Albania. So have you seen things evolve, or is there a certain consistency?
Well, there's more people now here, but essentially, for me, it has not changed since 20 years ago. The main reason why we are here is not couleur locale or whatever configurations of strange clients and so on. But what challenged us from the first day is the vision that is existing here. I was already, let's say 48 or something when I came here first. And it was in fact the first time that on the other side that there was vision. The projects we do in France, Belgium, Western Europe, most of the time you are confronted with rules and administration. And here, vision replaces rules. And that is something fantastic to work in. Maybe what is specific in our case is that we do quite a lot of public projects, be it public space with which we begun here, or public buildings. We all the time have an exchange with a few persons here. And we use them as a really true exchange making the project, but also sometimes we use them as a weapon. A weapon to protect us from all the uncertainties that happen here. And so that was the case in the very beginning. I could give a few examples. Also important, about this vision that is existing here is that they are not fixed, they are evolutive. So maybe to just name a few things that we did the Lungomare in Vlora, which is an 8-kilometer public space that links again a city of about 250,000 people with the sea, because this link was unexisting before. And that's already, I mean, it's not our idea to link the city with the sea, or to make
a bit more in the microphone.
Sorry, or to make a public space before buildings are being planned, that is a remarkable thing for me. In Belgium, France, and so on, they always speak about public space that makes the city, but it never happens. It's only talk. And here, with the Lungomare, it really, without building any building, doing this public space changed entirely the city. Another example I could name is that also does not come from us, but from the vision here, is with this series of football stadiums. It was a very clear decision not to make new football stadiums like everywhere else in the world, completely outside of the city with hectares of cars around it. No, the intention has very clearly been to keep these stadiums inside the city and to rethink them as catalyzers for urbanity. Unique, you won't find it in Europe. And then the last one about this evolutiveness, we also do in Vlora some public space inside the city, and then there was this a huge concrete structure, more or less derelict, 150-meter base with a 70-meter high tower. And the vision asked us to chop the tower because, yeah, it was not illegal, but it was just there as a concrete structure. They asked us to maybe the stucco should be cut up in pieces so that the scale responds better to the surrounding old city, and probably the tower should be just destroyed. And then we proposed to keep it and to transform the whole complex in a regional development center, 25,000 square meters. And the thing we do in order to do that is to carve in this concrete structure a path that is partly a ramp, partly a stair, and that will lead the public up to the last floor. And that is what I wanted to say about this evolution in vision.
Thank you. So, José, for you it has been a different, I think, time and experience. Can you share your first impressions with working?
Yes, thank you. So I remember, well, we are not that old. I mean, not that old in the sense that being here for 20 years. We were exactly 1 year ago when the first time we arrived in Albania, and of course we didn't know where exactly was Albania, and of course we didn't know anything about Albania. But I remember perfectly the first moment and the first impression. The first impression was taking the taxi from the airport to Skoda, this competition. And then we took this guy, this taxi driver, that I know perfectly his name, Petrit. And we were talking in Spanish with my partner, Pablo Oriol. And then we realized that most of the people in Albania, they can understand perfectly Spanish. Because we were talking about, oh my God, I'm so tired, I need a coffee, and this and that. And they said, you want a coffee? And yes, please. Okay, let's stop here. My friend has a nice coffee here. So we stopped there for a half an hour. We were in a rush, but it was difficult to say no and to escape from that place with the friends. Of course, we pay nothing, as we almost, like always here. It's difficult to pay because the hospitality in Albania is fantastic. But then, in that moment, I realized, okay, this looks like Spain. And it's funny because Kengo just said that Albania looks like Japan. Maybe Spain, Albania and Japan has kind of a relationship also with the sea, no? Because we love seafood and it's very important, the relationship with the sea. But then we went to do this competition, and then, well, I want to use this first impression to praise ingenuity. Because for me, the main thing that we found here is something that we've been accusing, or less accused, not, the ingenuity or the naiveness in our work. So that are very direct or very naive. But then we arrived and we thought, who's this ingenious guy that is kind of joining all these people, like, you know, like you have the opportunity to have a football team and you get all the best players in the world just for free or just for nothing or just like that. And who is this? How can be this guy so ingenious? I mean, so naive to do that, because it looks like it's not happening anywhere else. So the excuse of the other world is that we have a lot of laws, we have a lot of rules, you know, and this cannot be done here, and this, you know, this kind of lobbies of builders, of developers, of these people that they want to control that, and they never give you the freedom. That's what you have here. But anyway, there's always a way, and there's, I think, in any other country, to play with the same ingenuity that Eddie played here, because they say, okay, this is the prime minister, he can do whatever. No, it's complicated, I think, if you are the prime minister. I think it's easier if you are just the director of architecture. So I will encourage, for example, here my friend Iñaki that is in Spain, that do the same. It's not matter about the laws, no matter about rules. It's just about ingenuity and just wanted to do it and go for it. And just, well, I guess my real proposal is to don't want to be Europe, don't want to go and be part of Europe. Let's get Europe to Albania, let's Europe being part of Albania. So it's what we found and what we love. Thank you.
Thank you. So this is the end of the second round, and we're about to space and have lunch. But before that, we have two wonderful interventions, let's say. First, we start with a video message from Persyn, who unfortunately also cannot join us, but he has prepared a message for us, and we'll be watching that in a second. Then there will be a dance performance where they will be kind of performing the construction site in which we find ourselves. And right after that, you're all invited to go outside. You will find free lunch. And I also want to remind you that this is more than only these conversations. There's multiple floors above us with models, with a big map of Albania. And outside, you will find the kiosk, and you can answer some questions. So please roam around, and we will see each other at around 2:30 when we start the third round.
Hello, I'm Peter Wilson. I've been told I'm the godfather of international architects working in Albania. This because I've been active there for 20 years now. I was one of the very first international architects invited by Eddie Rama in his capacity as mayor, and have been ever since a great fan of Albania, evidenced by my book. This is the advertisement part. Some reasons for traveling to Albania. A good speed start for international architects entering a new context. I would also like, in my godfatherly role, to give a little bit of advice. The advice I gave to the Prime Minister on a competition jury we were recently on. I said to Eddie, Le Corbusier once said the architect is an acrobat and not a clown, which I guess means that Tirana is not a circus. And it is to be taken very seriously if one is adding to its very complex DNA. Another bit of advice, do not flout Albanian hospitality. The Besa is a very harsh, or very generous harsh system. I would like to thank Adelina as well, who I think is the fairy godmother of architecture in Albania. She's been involved for 20 years in competition organizing and in Atelier Albania. Also, a very big thanks to Eddie Rama, the Prime Minister and Mephisto of Albanian architecture. So having said that, I'd like to wish all of you best of luck and lots of fun with your Bread and Hut Festival.
Ladies and gentlemen, we now invite you to take a well-deserved lunch break.